Uncertainty. This is a reality of trading. Uncertainty is a constant in the market to varying degrees, but there's just no way around it. It's an intricate aspect of capital markets. The uncertainty of how price will unfold, the uncertainty of the magnitude of the move, of what the outcome of your trade will be, the possibility of black swan events, market moving variables that are in their nature unpredictable. All of that. That's what most traders struggle with. They can't embrace, accept that uncertainty. And that's why they struggle. They can't relax in the midst of it. Not knowing profoundly destabilizes them on an emotional level, on a psychological level. I myself have struggled a lot with uncertainty on my trading journey. As many of you already know, I began trading in 2006, trading for a living. And like most people out there, I thought that I'd be able to come into the market every day and take something home. And I spent years entertaining that fantasy. But eventually, through constant repetition, through constant learning and exposure to the market, I realized that the market is completely out of my control. I realized that even when I follow my trading strategy to a T, some days, the market isn't going to give anything to me. The market isn't going to be in a giving mood. The market is going to be in a taking mood. And that's just the way it is. And you know what? Once I got to this stage in my development as a trader, once I embraced that uncertainty, that not knowing, not just intellectually, superficially, but deeply, experientially, that's when I started to really come into my own as a trader. And that's when my results got more and more consistent. Because now I had completely relinquished the desire to control the market. I was more focused on trading my trading strategy, and sticking with my trading rules. I was less rigid with my expectations and more behaviorally consistent. At the end of the day, almost all trading errors have roots in the fear of uncertainty. But why? Why do we fear uncertainty so much? Why does it so profoundly affect us? It destabilizes us. Well, the simple answer is that our brains are essentially hardwired like that. In fact, in a recent neurological study at Caltech, researchers took the images of people's brains as they were asked to make increasingly uncertain bets. And so as those bets got more and more uncertain, the subjects got more and more irrational and erratic in their decisions, which is quite fascinating. I mean, you'd thought that the opposite would be true, right? Because in theory, the less information we have and the more careful and rational we should be as we seek to evaluate the different variables that we have and the validity of that information as we make decisions about the future. But oddly enough, this isn't the case. As the uncertainty of the future increases, we appear what appears to happen is that people's brain switch control to the limbic system, which is the part of the brain where emotions such as anxiety and fear are generated. So uncertainty seems to trigger a sort of battle, I guess, between the rational brain and the emotional brain. And I mean, I can imagine how at one point in our evolution, this was a useful survival tactic. We're talking about thousands of years ago now. I can just picture how our early ancestors, how they were, maybe venturing into an unknown cave, dark cave, and immediately, feeling that sense of fear, of anxiety, of caution, with their senses being heightened because danger and death were maybe just around the corner. The problem is that in our current day and age, rarely does uncertainty mean that our lives are at stake. I mean, first, we've set up a world where we've minimized a lot of the uncertainties that our ancestors had to deal with. For instance, we've watered off a lot of our natural predators. We even drove a lot of them towards extinction. We've created societal rules and regulations to protect us from ourselves. We have technologies now. I mean, there are many things that are almost certain, that have become certain in our lives. Almost as certain as the fact that the sun will rise tomorrow. And because of that, we've kind of fooled ourselves into a sort of complacency. Because of that illusion of certainty that we've created. And yes, make no mistake, it's an illusion of certainty. The truth is that the moment we're born, we're immersed in uncertainty. Everywhere around us, everything, every moment of every day is uncertain. But we've become complacent, and we don't see that uncertainty. And when we do see little pockets of uncertainty here and there in our lives, when we do experience those uncertainties, they're generally not life-threatening. But still, we're hardwired to fear uncertainty because, once again, it was a very crucial survival mechanism back in the days. So as we face uncertainty, our brains push us to overreact. Our brains perceive uncertainty as danger, and they try to protect us at all costs by funneling our attention towards things and narratives that purport to give us certainty. And look, this is normal, all right? It's absolutely normal. But in trading, it doesn't work. In trading, this approach doesn't work. The better approach is to embrace the uncertainty that's present, to embrace it fully instead of pretending it's not there. And a lot of people, a lot of traders like to pretend uncertainty is not there in the market. And so the first step in doing that, in learning to embrace that uncertainty, I think, is it lies in the understanding of it lies in understanding the relationship between the rational brain and the emotional brain. Renowned psychologist Jonathan Haidt uses a lovely analogy he explains that in a very fascinating way in his book, the happiness hypothesis. He argues that the emotional aspect of the brain is like an elephant, and the more rational, analytical aspect of the brain is like a rider, the rider of that elephant. And so, according to that model, the rider is always planning ahead, while the elephant is strictly driven by emotions and instinct. So when uncertainty causes the rider to panic, the elephant almost always takes over. When this happens, there's often a sort of knee-jerk reaction. And, well, taming the elephant isn't about eliminating those reactions. It's more about how quickly the rider can recover, can regain control and maintain control when the elephant is freaking out. In other words, when the emotional mind is trying to take over. Look, change can be painful. That's why we lose our shit when faced with uncertainty in life, let alone the market. Because we can't see what's coming. So we have this habit of imagining the worst. In fact, one of my meditation teachers, the late Thich Nhat Hanh, once said that people have a hard time letting go of their suffering because of the fear of the unknown. They'd rather keep suffering because it's familiar. And this speaks to our irrational fear of uncertainty. And I think it's a fascinating thing that our fear of uncertainty, of the unknown, causes us to prefer misery and mediocrity because it's familiar. And what's familiar feels much safer than the unknown. It's fascinating. But I mean, you can see how much of a trap this can become. This actually reminds me of a video I saw a while ago. It was trending on Facebook, I believe. So there's this little boy who's in the water and he's crying and panicking because he's thinking that he's going to drown. And then somewhere off to the side, his mom, maybe, or somebody else, walks into the frame and puts his legs, grabs his legs and puts them down so that you can realize how shallow the water actually is. And so the boy stands and sees that the water is like, it reaches right under his chest, and the expression on his face is priceless. It just completely changes because he realizes how overly dramatic he was. That's a nice visual of this idea of choosing to stay in our misery because we fear an inherently unknown future, which we automatically assume is going to be bad for us. There's a Buddhist expression I really like, and it says, "Relax, nothing is under control." I really like it. Relax, nothing is under control. I like it because, look, what's the point of worrying about a future that's inherently inscrutable? The future is open. The future is really open. Yes, bad things can happen and will happen, but so will good things. Oftentimes good things will lead to good things and bad things will lead to bad things. But sometimes you'll also notice that good things will lead to bad things and bad things will lead to good things, in the short to medium term at least. Such is the reality of life. Nothing is a guarantee. Nothing is certain. And you can see this you can see this as a harsh, oppressive truth or reality, or you can simply learn to accept it as it is and learn to flow with it, you know? Because look, staying at home, you know, locking yourself in your home for fear of the unknown isn't how you maximize your well-being in this life, you know? I think as traders, part of why we fear uncertainty so much is because we seem to get caught up in this game of thinking that we can actually control the market as it unfolds, or life for that matter. And this illusion of control is quite sticky and pervasive, because often we do have a lot of control in our lives, you know, in the material world, I mean. For instance, if you need something to eat, you just grab something out of the fridge, or you just go out to the grocery store and get something to eat. If it's raining outside, all good. You just cover yourself, you take an umbrella and you go out. If you're bored, you can grab a book or turn the TV on, or you can play a game, whatever. So you see, generally we have a lot of control in the material world. And this makes us forget that we don't control a lot of the most fundamental aspects of our lives. There's sickness, there's old age, there's death. We don't control these things. We also don't control other people's thoughts and minds and so many other things. The problem isn't that there's uncertainty in life. The problem is that we're not okay with that uncertainty. The problem is that we're not okay with that uncertainty. And in the market, we're confronted with that uncertainty on a moment-to-moment basis. We don't control who's going to come into the market and bid the price up or offer it lower. We don't control the macro and micro variables that determine sentiment. We don't control the magnitude of a particular price move. We don't control the outcomes of our trades. We don't control any of those things. We only control our trading process and our behavior. And there's a crazy irony here, because the more we try to control those things that are not in our control, the less control we actually have. The more we try to control things that are not in our control, the less control we actually have. So what I'd like to suggest here is that, it's something actionable that you can do right now to deepen your understanding of uncertainty and to learn to be okay with it and to learn to flow with it. And that actionable thing I'd like to suggest is to reflect on the different ways in which uncertainty manifests itself in your life. Like, if you have a job outside of trading, how secure is that job? You know? Can you be sure that the moment you step outside your house, a drunk driver isn't going to hit you? Can you be sure that your relationships will stand the test of time? Can you be sure that you'll remain in good health? Things like that. I think this little exercise will prove to be very helpful, because it'll help you identify the uncertainties in your life that you've become complacent towards. And it'll help you understand that the world is a complex place that requires a certain degree of humility. Not fear. Humility. Humility, as opposed to fear, is not about abhorring uncertainty. It's about being comfortable with it, in the midst of it. It's about understanding that you don't have all the answers in life, and actually being okay with it. So that's the first step. Change reflect on uncertainty. And the second step, I would say, change your attitude towards uncertainty, towards the unknown. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be mistaken about how some events will turn out. There's nothing wrong with those things. In fact, there's everything right with those things. Because when you try, when you try despite not knowing, and when you fail because you've tried, what this says about you is that you're brave and you're persistent. And what it also does is that it gets you a step closer to success. Because success is only a function of trying and trying and trying over and again with undying persistence. That's what gets you success. And what's great about trading is that in the market, you get to try a lot of times, provided that you manage your risk well. I imagine a lot of you know the game of Tetris, very popular game back in the 80s and early 90s. And the whole point of the game is that you don't know what's coming next. And so you don't play the game trying to predict what's coming next in terms of the pieces you're gonna get. The way you play the game is that you observe and you make the best of what you get. That's how you play the game. And trading is very similar. You focus on making the best of what you get. You cut your losses. You cut your losses where you're supposed to, and you let your winners run. And you keep exposing yourself like that to the market over and again, while never taking any losses personally. That's how we do it. So change your attitude about uncertainty. This is where positive thinking, I think, is helpful. It helps you change the thoughts in your mind that keep rehearsing, the worst, that have a negative spin to them. I think meditation plays an important role here too. In a way, meditation is the practice of becoming comfortable with discomforts in the present moment. And as we do that, as we become more comfortable with discomforts, with uncertainty, the quality of our lives goes up. And I think that is practiced directly with a consistent meditation practice. If you think about it, the whole point of meditation is to make peace with what is not in our control, and to make peace with it, and to become comfortable with reality as it is. And since uncertainty is reality, meditation is a great place to begin practice being comfortable with that uncertainty. I mean, there's so much more to say about meditation. There's so much more to unpack about the practice. And I'll do that in another episode that's specific around meditation. But let me share some final thoughts on the topic of uncertainty. The point I've hopefully made clear is that uncertainty is a constant, especially in the market. Okay? And to be a proficient trader is to make peace with that uncertainty. To not get frozen in your fears of the unknown. And to learn to flow with that uncertainty. To learn to ride the waves of uncertainty with ease, with confidence, with method. A little bit like water, to use a famous Bruce Lee analogy. If you think of how water is, it's really, water is the ultimate, is the ultimate expression of adaptation. It adapts to anything and to everything. Water goes everywhere, right? It has the power to change anything. Water in the form of a river, for instance, it flows and adapts to the path. And at the same time, water is what's carving the path as well. So the characteristics of water are found in a quality like adaptability, and we can learn to go through life very much like water. You know, we can flow, we can embrace, we can adapt. And this is a very powerful thing. There's a kind of paradox here in this discussion on uncertainty. Because, look, uncertainty is a constant. We've made that clear. There's no way around it. It's part and parcel of life, of existence. And so, the sooner you embrace this, the sooner you accept this reality, the sooner you learn to go with it instead of fighting it, the better you become as a trader, right? The more effective you become as a trader. When you learn to flow with that uncertainty. You know, it's like, once again, playing a game of Tetris. The whole point of the game is that you don't know what's coming. And so what you do is that you focus on making the best of what you get. This is how you play the game. So stop trying to have a perfect life, a certain life, a faultless life. Remember, nothing in life is in control. So relax.